Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. I'm your host, Monique, as you all already know. But if it's your first time, welcome to Infertility and Me podcast. I'm so glad that you're here getting the help, support, and validation that you need. Today, we are joined by Gleenobly. She is a U.S. born citizen, but she now lives in the UK with her husband, and she's going to tell us all the deets and give us all the tea about her story thus far, surviving infertility for many years, and what that's been like for her and her husband, and where they are right now. So, Gleenobly, thank you, dear, so much for coming on the show, giving us your time. And we're on different time zones, so I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us some of your evening today.
Well, thank you for having me, Monique. I appreciate it.
Yes. So, how did you and your husband meet, girl? How did that all go down?
Well, actually, we met through online means.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we both lived in the Midwest. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So, was it during your adult years, or was it earlier in maybe right around college or after college when you guys
No,
met?
it was our adult years for sure.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, I know that you said that you have endometriosis. Were
Yeah.
you a teenager when you got diagnosed, or is that something that transpired after you guys started trying to have a baby?
Oh, I discovered that after trying to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was yeah, all of this started about 13 years ago. So, and I always wanted to be a mom my whole life, and it just hasn't happened for me yet. And so I've had to deal with those circumstances. And yeah, finding out I had endometriosis was troubling. But I had some surgeries and got it handled. So,
Okay.
but just
Yeah.
didn't work out for me.
Did your endometriosis have indications when you were in your 20s or teen years? Sometimes
No,
we have
not at
no,
all.
so it was silent.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did that transpire with you getting diagnosed? Was it the testing that your fertility clinic did to assess your reproductive organs and they found endometriosis?
Yeah, that's what happened. And I
Okay.
ended up going back to my primary doctor at the time and
Mm-hmm.
went ahead and did more tests and had some surgeries and things and had it handled. And then life goes on and things happen and it just didn't I don't for some reason it just didn't work out. And then so I don't give up. That's the biggest thing that I can say is to just never give up. And
Did you have to have endometriosis removed? Was there any scarring, or sometimes it has like a web-like effect where it attacks other organs?
yeah, well, it was thankfully just removed, so I
Okay.
didn't have any strangeness or any of that happened in addition to the endometriosis. So I
Okay.
got that
Gotcha.
handled, and then we started looking further into infertility treatment, and we tried IUI several times, and that didn't work for me. And then we had situations arise. Now this is it blends together for me, but it's basically just imagine the last 13 years, and this is just things happening over that time frame. And especially in the last 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
there have been a lot of pretty wild things that have happened to us, and we're still not parents, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to
Mm-hmm.
give up. But yeah, so I had the endometriosis, I had some ovary issues, and had some surgeries to get those handled, and then I and then we thought, okay, let's just like I said, the IUIs didn't work out, so we thought, okay, next steps and things, and then we got to the point where I was going to try IVF,
Mhm.
but and then my husband and I talked about it, and he's like, and then we really did. And he gave me a choice, and thought, okay, if we try IVF, you get one chance. Because as everybody knows who has been in that world, it costs a lot of money and it's a lot of time and effort.
Sure.
And so I thought, okay, one chance. And then I just weighed everything, and I decided not to do it.
Mm.
And I'm actually glad about that, because I've heard, and I know yourself that you have done it. So,
Yeah.
and I have acquaintances, and I know people who have done it, and some are successful and some aren't. And but I just, at the time in our lives, I didn't want to put myself through that.
Mm.
And then plus I knew that we had this upcoming move to England,
Mhm.
which we had planned years ago. So
Okay.
we're still in the U.S.A. in the Pacific Northwest. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to do this right now. Maybe some other time, but not now. And then we ended up having some special family trips that we made. We got to go to the Philippines, where my mom's from, and see
Mhm.
that side of the family. And we got to go to England and see my husband's side of the family. And so we did that all in 2019. And then later in that year, in early 2020, is when the pandemic. We had some opportunities, surrogacy type opportunities. We also had
Mhm.
some adoption type opportunities
Mhm.
that all did not work out. And so we had those frustrations too.
So you get to the point where you guys decided that you didn't, well, you specifically being the one having to go through the IVF treatment, you didn't want to do that. And I totally understand weighing the pros and the cons of that. I've known people in the community who have also decided not to move forward with IVF too. So it's not as uncommon as people think, but it is still very rare, and so I totally understand that aspect. And so you got sick at some point, right? And so
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit of how, like, you guys are trying to figure out the surrogacy options and adoption options, and then boom, you get sick. So was your sickness before or during the pandemic?
So I'm going to go
Wow.
back to 2021.
Okay.
And so mid 2021, my husband had an accident where he needed knee surgery, and he
Mhm.
was in a wheelchair for 3 months. And then as he started to walk again, I had a very, very big surprise. It actually happened about 2 years ago now. We were babysitting our friends' kids. Our friends had to go out of town to a family member's wedding of theirs. And so we were babysitting their two kids. And I had put the kids to bed, and they wanted one of us to spend time with them as they tried to go to sleep. And so I just ended up doing that. And then they finally fell asleep. And I thought, I want to be in my own bed. So I got up somehow without waking them up.
Mhm.
They're heavy sleepers. And so I got out of the bed in our guest room, and I went over to mine and my husband's room. And I that's the last thing I remember.
Mm.
So the next thing I woke up, I was in an ambulance. And so for about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, I was in what they call a postictal state. So what happened was I had a grand mal seizure in my sleep.
Mm.
And
Take your time, dear. Yeah.
my my husband, okay. So if I didn't move beds, I'll be frank, I would have died. if I didn't switch beds. And I did switch beds. And I am grateful that I switched beds because I had a grand mal seizure in my sleep. And my husband had basically, he saved my life. And yeah, he called 911 and the first responders came. And apparently I was partially awake, and that's what they call, like I said, a postictal state. So I was walking around and I was talking and I was awake, but I don't remember any of it. And so, yeah, I ended up like I said, the next thing I knew I was in an ambulance. And then so I remember the ride over to the hospital. And thankfully at that time we had lived really close to a hospital. So, and that was
Wonderful.
good. But in the heart of the pandemic, they wouldn't allow anybody to visit at all. So I had to rely on,
the staff for the medical.
I had my phone. Yeah,
Okay.
the staff too. I had my cell phone. Thankfully, my husband was so kind as to hand the paramedics my glasses because I have horrible vision.
Okay.
And my glasses and my cell phone. So I was able to communicate with friends and family using my cell phone, and I could see. And so, but yeah, I ended up staying in the hospital for 6 days, and I had a 6-hour surgery to remove 99% of an almost tennis ball sized benign brain tumor. And so I really think that if I tried IVF, I don't think it would have worked. And so, I apparently have had this tumor since childhood and I never knew about it. I always thought something was wrong with me, but I could never put my finger on it. And now I can know the reasons why as to certain health issues and things. And so that's reassuring. And so yeah, then we went through all that. I had to quit my day job and I went on basically a medical leave of sorts. And and then I have no idea how this happened because it's never happened to me. But I funny enough, I really haven't told very many people, so I'm gonna admit that right now that in March of 2022, I found out that I was pregnant the natural way.
Wow. And wow.
Yeah.
What a surprise. And how long had it been since you had the tumor removed? Was it a whole year then? Or just a matter of months?
October of 2021 is when I had my brain surgery.
Okay.
And then March of 2022 is when I got pregnant the natural way.
Wow.
And I'll never forget this, on April 19th of 2022 is when I had my miscarriage. And in stark contrast to my experience in the hospital for my brain surgery, which was very smooth, everyone was wonderful. But on my miscarriage day, it was one of the worst days of my life.
I'm sure.
And my husband had to take me to the ER. And I've been in infertility support groups before, and I've talked to other people. And I've read books, and I've done a lot of research, and people have talked about, I think it's called the products of conception. If they want to have some type of memorial service, and they want to use, sounds gross, but it's just
no, not at all.
The products of conception, some type of memorial service or remembrance of some type. And I thought I never got that chance because I was treated so badly in the ER, and I ended up it was just a really bad experience. And I ended up in the ER bathroom most of the time. And
So did they have you in the ER waiting room just waiting?
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
those
I was
kinds of
in the
stories?
ER waiting room for most of the time. We were there like 6 hours, maybe 7.
And were you already bleeding and showing signs of miscarriage possibly, or were you
Yeah,
just
it was
bleeding?
awful. I was shaking. I was in the worst pain I've ever been in. And yeah, it was just awful. Now, I will say that the saving grace was there was one hospital employee who was
Mm-hmm.
there that night who helped my husband and I. And she was the overnight um, like technician.
Mm-hmm.
She was an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to help us, and it was just a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So before I never was able to get pregnant ever. Even as a a lot younger
Younger
person.
adult,
It never
yeah, yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but now I get to join that club of people who have gotten pregnant and then
Mm-hmm.
had miscarriages.
Yeah.
I could remove myself from that emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's like now that happened, and yeah. And then yeah. So that was I'm already dealing with the other things that happened in 2021, and now this happens. And then also, and in amongst all that, we sold our house that we had lived in for 8 years, and we
Mm-hmm.
went and moved in with some friends. And then in April of 2023, we moved to England so that my husband could be closer to his side of the family.
Gotcha.
I've had just it seems like just boom, 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 just
Mm-hmm.
all of these
Mm-hmm.
things in a row that uh, make life hard. And so
Yeah.
I've somehow been able to get through it. And I have other friends who have had brain tumors and similar experiences as I have. And I'm just grateful
It
that
sounds like, yeah,
I'm
a lot of
walking and
support.
talking, and I just
Go
feel
on with
very
life.
lucky.
Mm-hmm.
So the point that we're at now is I'm actually we're looking into adopting an older child.
Okay.
But the rules in the UK are that you have to live here at least a year. So there
And
again,
establish residence
yeah.
and show that you're a good citizen and a law abiding citizen and all those things, right? Yeah.
Well,
It
yeah. I mean, and I suppose they don't want people just moving here, adopt a kid, and then
taking
immediately
them back to the
move
US. Yeah.
or wherever they
Right.
go. Yeah.
Is there any kind of stipulations for that sort of a thing? Like after you adopt a child, you have to stay in the UK for a period of time afterwards. So, because I know it probably works similar to the US where they kind of keep tabs on the children even after adoption with the social workers.
Yeah, that one I'm not sure about. I need to look more into that.
Right,
But we're
right.
also considering actually international adoption. So
Okay.
we're going to see about England, and the
Mm-hmm.
UK, but we're also going to look into other countries as well. But
Oh, okay.
we
Okay.
we have to wait again
Mm-hmm.
until April. So,
Yeah. All this waiting, right? That seems to be the theme. And well, I'm so glad that you survived the tumor and that your husband recovered. Sounds like he recovered pretty well from his injury as well.
yes.
And so everybody, you guys were just going through so much, like you said, back to back to back, and then getting the BFP for the first time, and then losing said baby and having to heal from that. Were you getting any therapy after your tumor or during the process of being treated for the tumor to help deal with some of the emotional aspects at all?
Yeah, actually, I did have a mental health counselor in the U.S.A. And yeah, she's was very very good counselor,
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, so I did get that help in that way. So
Yeah.
that
Only
was
reason
good.
I ask is because sometimes whether you get the therapy or counseling for a short period of time or a long period of time, you kind of learn like these different coping mechanisms and ways to that work for you to move through the pain and such, and being able to still have some joy and find some moments of joy while you're still healing and coming to terms with what has happened to you. So that's why I kind of ask. 'Cause sometimes people just go for a short period and they find that that's enough for them. And they get what they need. So yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's a good
Mhm.
question. Thank you for asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in a position where I do feel like mental health counseling and therapy is a positive thing and it's a really good thing, but it's really hard to find a counselor who
Mhm.
meshes with you.
Yeah.
So,
It is. And then if you want to add
yeah.
gender, like you want a female therapist or
Yeah.
you want one who is not like religious based, and you have to get through all these niches
Yeah.
to kind of find the right one. It can feel a lot like possibly going on job interviews and interviewing that company, or you being
Yeah.
interviewed. So I get it. And what do you feel like is your number one motivation besides wanting to be a mom? Is there another motivation that keeps you on the path to parenthood?
Yeah, that's a good question. I Yeah, it's the desire. Of course, the primary desire is to just so that my husband and I can have a child of our own to raise
Mhm.
and call ours
Mhm.
and delve into that
Mhm.
lifestyle. And also I do have really close family and really close friends who already have children and those children are also in my life. And so how nice would that be to have my husband and I have our own child and then be able to have that child be a part of these other kids' lives as well. Like
Mhm.
I one of my brothers, he has one of his children is one's an adult, but one's also a child. And
Okay.
then the kids we were babysitting, they're like kids to my husband and I. So
Mhm. Mhm.
and then my best friend has 4 kids. So I do it's just a sense of, okay, I wanna be able to have that I want us to have our own child, and then he or she will have people to play with and get to know as well. And,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and just I'm really also what's important to me is I'm really big on friendships and family and
Mhm. That
quality
like
time.
community thing, right? That
Yeah,
whole
the
community
community,
aspect. Mhm.
quality time with people, and so having a child is just a part of that. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
get it. I get it. I think that's kind of what we all feel like going into this craziness, not knowing how it's all going to transpire. And I got my fingers crossed for you guys. And I hope that
Thank you.
whatever's going to happen in the near future for you guys on your path to parenthood and just your relationship as a couple, that it all works out for you all. And why not you, right? I think
Yeah.
that's how it kind of feels too along this journey. It's like, well, why not me? I know that I have these medical issues, but why not me? I would make a good person, be a good parent. I'm a good person, pretty decent person, I think, right?
Yeah. And then also part of me thinks I did this did cross my mind recently, but I'm still going to we're still going to try adoption. But it did cross my mind that not having kids yet, and we don't have kids not by choice. I want
Hmm.
to emphasize that because I know
Yeah.
that there are people we have friends and family who don't have kids by choice.
Right.
And I thought, well, gosh, what if we just don't have kids?
Mm.
And then because I do know that we do have a lot, like we do have a lot of freedoms,
Hmm.
but why can't we? Yeah, so I wrestle with that, and I think I know that having a child will changes people's lives. I
Still
still
the
want to
desire.
give it a
Yeah.
try. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there is that sense of just freedom with not having little ones to look after, I suppose. But
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with still wanting and desiring to have the opportunity to raise children and to do it right, And even in this crazy world we live in, it's still a blessing to be able to care for another life and be entrusted with that special, special bond. And I did want to ask you too, if you were standing face to face with yourself as a younger woman in the earlier parts of your path to parenthood, what would you go back to yourself and tell her something that you think would help her?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would tell her to get her brain checked out for sure, MRI. And then I would say tackle all the medical problems. And then I would actually tell myself to be more, see if I could do more to be able to become a mom sooner.
You mean like getting testing or?
Yeah, just
Okay.
making it happen.
Being more proactive earlier?
Yes, being
Gotcha.
more proactive earlier.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you feel like you waited too long? Is there times where you feel like you waited too long to get started?
It feels like that. Also, though, I I think about those types of situations, and then I think, but I also remember the type. There are people who say to no regrets, right? And I wouldn't change a thing. Those phrases. And then I thought, well, then I think about like the butterfly effect and think, well, even if I made a change, then wouldn't I not be where I am today? Like how much of it's hard to wrestle with that and decide on that, but because that's something I think about a lot too, is cause and effect.
Yeah.
And I think back to the yeah. So it's just those types of things that I think about.
Yeah, I gotcha. Is there anything you would say to a newly diagnosed woman, or she, he, they, them, and they're struggling mentally and emotionally and grappling with the idea that they're struggling and need help to become parents? Is there a word of encouragement you would have for someone like that?
Well, yeah. I just don't give up. I mean, it might sound trite, but it's such a common phrase, but it really does have meaning. Just don't give up and do everything you can to become a parent in the way that you want to be a parent. And on that journey, find things that bring you joy and hold on to those. I mean, as you go through any steps and processes that you're going through, just I know for me, I'm a giant fan of laughter and fun. I'm a goofy gal, and I love to laugh and be silly and joke around. And so, for me, humor is a really big for me. So, yeah, don't
Find that
give up and
joy.
hold on to humor.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, you guys, because you don't know which way it's going to go, and you got to be prepared. And there's things that we can do to put us in a better mind space to be able to deal with the stress that comes along with this path that we're on, and that you guys are on, I should say, because I'm done. And no looking back at this point.
I'm a sensitive person, and I just can't bring myself anymore unless it's one of my best friends or something. I'm probably not going to go to a baby shower. I'm probably not going to go to I might not even go to a kid's birthday party. It just depends, but it's hard to be around that.
Yeah, it is.
Nothing against the people. It's just,
Dealing with your
inward
own inner,
struggles.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I know that you've talked about this a lot, is the silent suffering.
Yeah. And it kind of lingers, and you almost feel, number one, you feel guilty for feeling that way, especially when you do want to be there for others and support them and support what's happening in their family. And at the same time, it's almost like you have to protect your own well-being as well, and knowing how to gauge what you can handle at that time, because there may be a year where you could do all the things and it feels okay, and you can do it and you can show up the way that you want to for others. And then there's times where you just can't, you shut it all down, like you just can't do any of it. And I think that we have to give ourselves grace, and I think that we have to be honest with ourselves about where we are and not try to force these things, even though we love these people deeply. It is very difficult to deal with your own struggles and still show up and love people the way they need you to love them, especially when there's children involved on their end. So you have a podcast too, girl. What's the name of your podcast? On a lighter note.
Yes, on a lighter note. Yes. It's called Punctuated by a Lemon.
Yes, it is so entirely cute and funny. Gleenobly and her brother do it together, and it's a really easy listen. They don't keep a lot of your time depending on what they're talking about. So you guys make sure you check that out. In the show details, you'll find a link to her website and to the platform as well. Is there another way you want anyone to connect with you, Gleenobly, through Instagram or anything, or email?
Yeah. Actually, I don't do Instagram, but
Okay.
yeah. So I actually I just started this, my brother Russ and I. So we've had our podcast for 3 years now, and we're going to have it for a long time. So, but recently I actually started a private Facebook group called Punctuated by Lemon. So you're definitely welcome to join that. And I welcome communications with others, and I do have an email that I'll give you. And actually, I'm going to say I have a blog that has a little bit of cobwebs on it. So, but it's still there. And so I'm going to use that email address that I still have for that. So at the time I made the blog, it's called I Play the Computer Keyboard, because I love to type and write, and I also love the piano and the keyboard, piano keyboard. So I did a dual word thing and just said I play the computer keyboard, and so short for I play the computer keyboard.
Gotcha.
So
easy to remember.
Yes. IPTCK yahoo.com.
Gleenobly, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I appreciate you, dear, for coming on the show. And I have all my fingers, I don't know if I could do the other ones, crossed for you and hubby as you move forward in adopting in the UK or abroad in the next year or two when you guys are eligible. I just appreciate you for sharing with us some of the most vulnerable times of your life. And we got through it, girl. We did it. We got through it, right?
Yes. And thank you, Monique, for having me and for this podcast that you put together so eloquently and helping people who are in this type of situation.
As you guys know, we can't do any of this alone. Infertility, miscarriage, etc., or life for that matter. We can't do it alone, and I do not want to leave you guys silently suffering. And I appreciate you, friend, for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. You guys know where to find me on the gram, Infertility and Me podcast, for more fertility related content, as well as updates about what's happening in and around the community, and my email, infertilityandme@outlook.com, or you could just connect with me on the gram or through YouTube. So I appreciate you, friends. If you resonated with today's episodes, get in touch with Gleenobly or myself or comment on the YouTube channel. Until next week, you guys, peace and blessings. Hey friend, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. You can connect with me and other members in the community on Instagram at Infertility and Me podcast and or watch on YouTube at Infertility and Me podcast. You can also email me at infertilityandme@outlook.com for a chance to record and help in the stigmas surrounding infertility so that we can reach more friends who may be silently suffering. Until next time.